Still more music. And now each morning there was a song rehearsal on the pasture, for Vincy had organized a choir among the boys who had good voices. Some of them could not sing, and others would not, but that was not amiss, for some had to watch the herd while the rest practiced. Vincy had long known that Jos and Virilai had the best voices, and he chose them as leaders of his choir, Jos of the high voices, Virilai of the low, and they did their work capitally. They also helped in keeping order, for as soon as the lads learned anything by heart, they wanted to begin singing as soon as Vincy had given the keynote on his sham and did not like to be restrained. Jos and Virilai understood this was not according to Vincy's wishes, and often had much ado to keep the noisy singers quiet until their time came. Thus the week passed and Sunday came, the day Vincy had chosen to carry out his project. Had his choir not been sufficiently well trained, he would gladly have waited another week, for Sunday it must be, in order to fulfill his plan. Jos and Vincy marched up the mountain with their troop of singers. The procession grew as it advanced, other boys joining them from the scattered cottages along the way. Some who were not singers came too, just to listen and to see what happened. As usual, the grandfather was sitting on his bench in the warm sunshine, letting the refreshing mountain breeze fan his ruddy cheeks. He looked questioningly on the approaching crowd. Vincy, Jos and Virilai were in the lead and came up to within a few feet of the old man. The others grouped themselves about and Vincy began to play a merry tune. But soon the notes changed into a sadder strain, and finally sounded like real lamentations, as though someone were begging for mercy. Here the choir joined in and sang softly, as though to awake hope with the words. Yes, the holy hymn of grace. And then the sham again sounded its plaintive strain until the choir repeated in louder and fuller volume. Yes, the holy hymn of grace. Once more came the pleading tones of the pipe, but when the chorus took up the refrain again, it was in loud rejoicing. Yes, the holy hymn of grace sounds through all eternity. And in unison voices and sham concluded in a triumphant song of joy. There was a moment of intense silence. The grandfather sat speechless, hands folded over his knees. Then one of the boys ran off, others quickly followed, and then the whole crowd rapidly dispersed over the green meadow where a large herd of cows from the valley was grazing under the care of comrades of the choir boys. Virilai alone remained with Jos and Vincy, but he also suddenly disappeared. He never did stay long where absolute quiet reigned. When the grandfather at last looked up, it seemed he had just returned from far away. "You sang a beautiful song for me," he said kindly. "Where did you find it?" "Of course, Vincy, you taught it to the others?" "I got it from you," replied Vincy. Muttered the grandfather. "You seem to understand what is said to you. But the music, where did you find it?" "That came to me because I wanted to sing the hymn you could no longer remember," explained Vincy. "It is good of you to wish to give pleasure to an old man. But wait. I had almost forgotten something," and the grandfather fumbled around in his pockets. "I have thought of you too, and told Father Sylvanus about your wanting a certain kind of song. You can see how kind he is, for he has brought it to me already. But he made one condition: if you find the tune for it, you must go up there and sing the song to him. Here it is at last," and he pulled out a long sheet of paper. As Vincy took it, the grandfather continued, "Now I have something more to say. Jos, you know the cellar. Go, bring me the cheese which has been cut and one of the large loaves of bread. Vincy will go with you, for it will be too heavy for you to carry alone. Take it out to the boys who sang to me. They are sure to be on the pasture. You have given me a feast, now hold one for yourselves. Take a cup from the kitchen and take turns drinking. Xaver will milk." The grandfather always called Virilai by his surname Xaver, for the boy's father and grandfather, his own firstborn son, had been called by the same name. The two boys ran off to carry out his commission, and their burdens made them pant as they came up the steep cellar stairs. In spite of that, they hurried off with happy faces. "Come back again, boys," said the grandfather, as they held out their hands in grateful farewell. "Make another happy Sunday for me." The pair really did find the singers on the great open pasture space, and the tower boys were with them. Shouts of joy welcomed the laden messengers, and the whole crowd quickly sat down on the grass and the feast started, for boys have astonishing appetites, and many of those from the little cottages had only potatoes for their daily fare. Vincy sat down behind the boys, for he wished to be alone, to read the words of the song. Would the melody he had heard so clearly fit itself to the words? On drawing out the paper, he found the writing so plain it was very easy to read, and he read the words over and over again. Suddenly such a longing gripped him that he could not sit there any longer. He must go up to the field of roses, to listen to the melody and to sing it to himself. He slipped quietly away from the boys who were engrossed in their eating and drinking and ran up the mountain until he reached the sunny field. Seating himself in his former place, alpine roses on every side of him, he pulled out the paper again and read. "Behold, on high and beaming sun the glowing clouds like roses, no thorns to mar the beauty there, no other flower can compare to that glowing as of roses. In beaming sun as in delight foams the cascade from rocky height, garbed in a cloak of spotless white, dauntless and shimmering in its flight foams the cascade from rocky height. In beaming sun and glowing rays, how proudly stand those peaks! While mortals frail oft go astray and soon, alas, must pass away, forever stand those peaks. Within the glow of beaming sun how soon all sorrows cease. Oh, valley dwellers, 'tis heaven's call, will ye not hearken one and all? For there your sorrows cease." It was so late that night when Vincy came running down the mountain that he found the entire family had gathered in front of the house to watch for his coming. Jos had returned several hours before and had told how the grandfather had enjoyed the singing and had shown his hospitality by providing a feast, and how Vincy had suddenly disappeared from the pasture where they had eaten it. "Vincy, Vincy," his cousin called out as he saw him coming. "We had almost begun to believe you had run away." "I certainly never would do that," Vincy assured him, all out of breath. "I was sitting up there among the alpine roses and entirely forgot the time." "Perhaps you made some pipes?" asked Rusli. "Tomorrow, Rusli, tomorrow for that," said Vincy with understanding, as the father hurried them into the house. He wanted a little Sunday music too, he said, but first of all they must have supper. Vincy spent many happy hours in his rose field during the following days, and was able to do so with a clear conscience. Jos knew what was in course of preparation, and it was he who sent Vincy up there every morning immediately they reached the pasture, so he could have long hours in which to compose the new song. Jos found it hard to wait until it was ready to be practiced. Vincy called his chorus together in a few days, and this time everything went so well that their progress seemed really wonderful to him. They had only to listen to the melody the sham played, and then they sang all the song, for the tune quickly caught and pleased the ear, and they carried it through with great zest. Vincy had to accompany the song only a few times with Jos and Virilai as leading voices until the herd boys all over the different pastures could sing it. As soon as they gathered in the morning, one boy would call out to the other, "Let's sing our song," for it was the general feeling that it was their very own. The next Sunday the boys proceeded up to the grandfather, who had heard something about the proposed visit. He watched the approaching procession with pleasure. It was much larger than on the first occasion, and the boys were so enthusiastic that they hardly waited until they reached his bench to begin their song, and their voices increased in power to its end. "Bravo! Bravo!" exclaimed the delighted grandfather. sing it again." Instantly the lively singers repeated it with undiminished power. When Vincy found that the song was going so well, he tugged at Jos's sleeve, and he in turn signaled to Verili, who stood close by, and the three slipped away like lizards. This plan had been agreed upon as Vincy desired to carry out the grandfather's commission, but he thought it would be improper to make much noise near the quiet hospice above, and if his chorus knew what he and his two companions had in mind, the whole crowd would run after them. Having once gained the road, the three boys soon reached the great stone building which Vincy remembered so well. When they stood in the doorway, Verili gave the bell cord such a jerk that the clang sounded all through the building. A small old man opened the door a little. "What do you want?" he asked. "To see Father Sylvanus," replied Verili quickly. Peering at the three boys rather suspiciously, the old doorkeeper said with deliberation, "Such boys! To want to summon Father Sylvanus for a joke! What do you want of him?" "Let's go," suggested Vincy softly. "Father Sylvanus certainly has no time for us." But Verili was not so easily put off and said unabashed, "We carry a message from grandfather and wish to give it to Father Sylvanus himself, as we were told to do." At this, the old man opened the door a little wider and let the three boys step in. "You can wait here," said he abruptly, and went down the dim passage. The boys heard his shuffling step long after he was out of sight, and after a while other footsteps, firm and rapid, approaching. "That's Father Sylvanus," exclaimed Verili, but already the priest stood before them in his long robe and gazed at them searchingly. "You are one of the boys at the tower, you bear their mark," he said to Verili. "Who are your companions?" "This boy belongs to Lorenz Lisa and the other one is his cousin, Vincy Lisa of Luke." A peculiar smile flitted over the priest's face on hearing the latter name, and looking at Vincy, he said pleasantly, "Come along with me." He led them down the long corridor, opened a door in the rear and invited all three to enter. It was a very large room with dark paneled walls, against which stood ancient leather chairs with high backs. In the center of the room was an immense square table, but Vincy's eyes had been instantly attracted by something in the corner and he kept gazing at it. It looked like Alita's piano, only taller. The priest now stood right in front of the boys and inquired what the grandfather desired. Vincy felt that it was his duty to report and said if the kind father wished it, they would be pleased to sing the song which he had given the old man. "Good. I will be pleased to listen," said the priest, and when he noticed that Vincy hesitated, he added, "Do you want to ask something else, lad? Shall I sing with them, or shall I play?" "Play, play, I must hear the shawm too," said Father Sylvanus with a kindly smile. Instantly the music started, and Vincy, sure of his two singers and gaining courage from the priest's kind manner, did not play the melody, but an accompaniment which he had often practiced by himself. When the song was at an end, Father Sylvanus looked at Vincy with real affection. Placing his hand on the boy's shoulder and gazing straight into his eyes, he said, "My boy, I want to know something, tell me the truth about it. Had you heard the tune you have just been playing, or a similar one, perhaps, with other words?"